I don't feel like doing a proper intro. Coming in at number 4, we have the Sloth If route. This shouldn't really come as a surprise to anybody. The Sloth If route, that is a tongue twister, is just significantly like less impactful than the other 3 that I read. And in all honesty, I didn't even really read it like that. I kind of skimmed through it. I didn't really gain all the content. But in my defense, it was 5 chapters. Do you really think I'm about to read 5 chapters of A Slice of Life? I can just get a general understanding of what's happening. The Sloth If route really doesn't have any content that can, surmount to the content that the other 3 If routes have. Now that we're past that nonsense, let's get to the real shit. Coming in at number 3, we have the Wrath If route. This If route was really cool because it showed how powerful Subaru could really be with just his mind. I've seen people in TikTok comment sections, I know that's a bad reference, but I've seen people criticize Subaru because he doesn't get stronger as the series goes on. He's not beating people up and using crazy powers to beat people. And that's just not the point of his character. His whole character is not supposed to be strong. He's a human. He's not Reinhardt, okay? He's not going to pull out a giant sword and start killing people with that. Or he's not Amelia. He's not going to shoot icicles. He is smart. He's going to use his brain to beat his opponent. That's the main component of his superpower, of Return by Death, is he gathers information from his past lives and he uses that to come out on top. And in this situation, he used his intellect to become the Purge King, and which is a great nickname, by the way. I'm not gonna lie, that nickname is fire. But it's also kind of crazy seeing in this story Subaru is like literally killing hundreds of thousands of people just with the flip of a coin. Like he's flicking coins. You wouldn't expect that from Subaru Natsuki that we see on the current route that he's on. This If route showed a completely darker side of him that was just ruthless. However, the reason why this If route falls at 3 is because at the beginning, I really did not know what was going on. I'm gonna be honest, like I knew what was happening, but it was hard to visualize what was happening because it just felt all over the place. I didn't really get a clear indication whether or not the people, like Celibus, I think his name, or Cecilis, I forget his name, him and Roswell, I couldn't tell if they were outside the mansion or inside the mansion. And there was a lot of times where I didn't know who was talking in certain situations, and it was hard to pick up on that. So unfortunately, because of that confusion, it has to fall beneath the other 2 because it was kind of losing me at the beginning before it inevitably picked up. Sorry about my stutter, or stammer. Same shit, I think. I don't know. But it inevitably picked up, and when it picked up big time because the final act of this story is probably the best read-through that I had throughout all 4 of the If routes that I read. The confrontation between Reinhardt and Subaru, and then Amelia's whole relationship with Subaru, and then Subaru's freak out at the end when Amelia forgave him for all the horrible things that he did, that shit was literally so beautiful and such great storytelling. And all the way from the midpoint to the end was amazing storytelling. It's just a shame that the big confusion I had from the beginning kind of brings it down to 3rd place. But to be fair, even if there wasn't as much confusion in the beginning, I don't think it could have surmounted past the other 2. And the first of that other 2 is going into 2nd place. And I don't know how you guys are going to feel about this because in 2nd place, we got Greed. Now, I know this is the most famous one, the one where he goes, "A dream. I saw a dream. I died over 100 million." Like, I get it, okay? This is the most famous one. And it deserves the fame, okay? I can't lie. When I was reading through Greed, it felt like I was reading a goddamn movie script. It was so descriptive and interesting to me, seeing how emotionless everyone was because of the greed, because of greed. From a thematic standpoint, I think this portrayed the theme of greed perfectly. How it kind of just greed sapped the life out of all of the characters. Reinhardt's a shell, Amelia's a shell, Subaru's like a super shell. Everyone is just completely different from the characters that we see them in Arc 5. And even though this is ranked 2, this is the If route that I would love to see expanded upon the most, because I felt like it had a very open ending towards the end and a very interesting idea. Seeing everyone as a shell of themselves, I would love to see how the future of their characters would play out, and how see a Subaru freak out. See him freak out as like he tries to save somebody and fails over and over until he eventually finds a way to do it, because he will. However, the reason why this goes at 2 is because it just wasn't very eventful. The read through was very interesting, but the story, it was kind of just like an in look into an existing universe. You know, it was kind of just like a trailer almost. We got a trailer into a bigger story, and I would love to see that story expanded, but I can't put a trailer at the one spot. So that leaves us with our final ranking, and that goes to number 1. I mean, there's only one left, so you already know it's Pride. Now, the primary reason why Pride is at 1 is because it had me hooked from beginning to end. I don't think there was a single dull moment throughout this entire route, and that, I think, dilutes down to the fact that this diverged from the initial starting point. Okay, from the initial spawn point, he diverges from the real path. It started off, he's killing the 3 gang members at the start, which was an amazing opening, and then he talks about how he's died 88 times off the rip. I looked up when I first read that, or he was 87 times, but who cares? I looked up right when I read that, how many times has Subaru died before Arc 6 and the anime. That thing said 20 to 22 times. That is literally, he has died quadruple the amount at just the beginning of the Pride If route than compared to like the current one that we're on, where he's gone all the way to Arc 5. On top of that, it was extremely well paced, and it covered a lot of different characters in such a short amount of time. We got Regulus death, Betelgeuse death, all in one sitting. And also we had Elsa. He teamed up with Elsa and the little girl, I forget her name, and then he fights Reinhardt at the end, and it reveals like he's about to like explode the world or something with a giant fire tornado, or I don't know. It was so interesting from beginning to end. I couldn't look away from the story. And the reveal at the end when he's like talking to Amelia and he's like, I'm Subaru Natsuki, the Sin Archbishop of Pride, representing Pride. That shit was so cool, and it really was like a fun little callback to Season 1 when Betelgeuse calls him Pride. That shit, like, it was just such a really well-rounded story that kept me hooked, like I said, from beginning to end. And that's why I have to put it at the 1, because not only was it such a well-rounded story, it covered, like, it was its own thing. It wasn't a trailer kind of thing like what Greed had going on. It was just its own story that kept me engaged from start to finish. And now we're at the end. That was a lot shorter than I thought, but to be fair, it's only 4 if routes. I still have a lot more to go through, but I wanted to do this now because I'm not going to get to the other if routes until way later down the line, because I still have to watch Arc 6 when they do it in the anime, and then I have to read all of the web novels, you know, that are out right now till Arc 10, I think they're on currently, and then I have to read all the if routes after that, and then we can circle back and I can do another ranking of everything. But I wanted to get this out of the way now because I couldn't stop thinking about these if routes. I thought they were so interesting to me. I wanted to get an initial ranking. Also, my opinion might change later down the line because there's a good chance I'll reread them, except for Sloth. It's 5 chapters. I'm not doing that shit. But there's a good chance I'll reread them before reading the other if routes again. So then I'll have another ranking. I don't see how Pride can be overtaken by Greed in any aspect, but I'm really curious to see Gluttony. That is one that might overtake Pride. I can't read it, obviously, because it spoils Arc 6 for me, but eventually, when I read Gluttony, that shit might overtake, because I'm really interested to see what that one's about. But that's all I gotta say. I'm gonna see you guys later in the future, you know, when I circle back to this ranking and we can finish with Rizuru. Shout out to this fellow right here for putting me on, because without you, the final showdown, I think your name is, if I'm remembering that right, I would not be this hooked onto this character. I love Subaru Natsuki. He's become one of my favorite characters of all time. But yeah, I'm gonna see you guys later. Bye!